Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening of gratitude and praise.
Eve, you have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Okay, that didn't come up as fast as I thought. So I'm going to start again and say welcome, everybody, to this evening of gratitude and praise as we celebrate Cantor Raphael Frieder and his nearly 30 years of service to Temple Israel. Tonight's program features recordings of melodies for congregational prayer that Cantor Frieder has composed over the years with us, along with reflections and tributes from both members of our congregation and from the Cantor's professional colleagues. The Cantor will also respond to a few questions from me, sharing some of his thoughts about his role as our Chazan over the past 3 decades. So some quick housekeeping to begin. Until the very end, when everybody will be unmuted, everybody on this event will stay muted until the end, but the chat function is going to remain open throughout the program. And so we invite those of you who would like to share thoughts and comments with the congregation and with Cantor in the chat, for those of you on Zoom. Cantor Frieder and I are also going to introduce all of the speakers and the videos, but we've also posted in the chat, and you'll see it here twice already, a link to the program. So for those of you who want to follow along with the order of presentation, you can see the program there, and we'll do it again a few times over the course of the evening. So now we begin, and we'll turn to Cantor Frieder, and let me ask you, Cantor, please to tell us a little bit about this first piece that we will hear, a medley of melodies that you recently wrote for Lecha Dodi.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Eve, for hosting and for the question. So, Lecha Dodi. I never thought that I was interested in writing Lecha Dodi, a setting for Lecha Dodi, because there are so many good melodies. In fact, I once was at the Israeli archive, audio archive in the Israeli library, and they said that there were, at the time, that was in the 90s, there were 2,000 tunes for Lecha Dodi. I suspect by now there is at least double, if not more than that. So I didn't think I wanted to, but during COVID, I had a wave of composing and writing, and then I thought, you know what, let's try Lecha Dodi. So I tried one, and then I tried another one, and then I tried the third one, and suddenly I had 3 melodies of Lecha Dodi. And that's what you are going to hear tonight. So, and we're going to start the program with that.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, הרושם אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו וללכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם מהסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי תוכפך, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. 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 התנערי מעפר קומי, לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי. על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי, קרבה אל נפשי גאלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד השם עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תמי. בך יחסו עניי עמי, ונבנית העיר אל תילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. והיונים ששושייך ורחקו כל מבלעייך, יסיס עלייך אלוקייך, כבשוס חתן על כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, את הרושם דריצי. אל יריש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטר בלה, גם בשמחה וצהולה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Well, that was a gorgeous start to our evening. And we turn now for our first presentation to our esteemed associate rabbi, Rabbi Schweber.
Thank you so much, Eve. Obviously, thank you, Cantor Frieder, for everything that you have done in my years here and obviously the years previous. We're in the middle of just began the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, which talks about, obviously, the Israelites becoming slaves, the 10 plagues, and then they leave Egypt and they go to the Sea of Reeds. and the sea splits miraculously and they go through. And then it talks about a song. Az yashir Moshe uvenei Yisrael. Then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song at the Shira Hazot. The Midrash, the rabbis, ask, how was this song sung? And in typical rabbinic fashion, they have several ways that it was done. One, that Moses just sang the song and the Israelites listened, perhaps danced along, as we know that Miriam led the women in dancing after that. Perhaps Moses sang one bar and then Israel repeated the same bar. Or Moses sang one line and Israel sang the next line in sort of antiphony or sort of responsive reading of the song. Or the other one is they all sang it in unison together. And of course, the rabbis say, which one is it? And in typical rabbinic fashion, all of them. And Chazan Frieder, all of those ways that we have sung, you have done. You have led us in your own words and your own music that we get to listen to fill our ears and our hearts. You have sung words for us to repeat after you, to learn and to sing along with you. You have done responsive singing. We sing one, you sing another. And then, of course, we have sung in unison. And that is obviously the ideal. The way to go is to sing in unison one another. Tonight is not a final night. It says it's a farewell because Rosh Hashanah is early this year. Everyone knows that I like to go with calendar. So Labor Day nights, you and I get to share the Bima together on Erev Rosh Hashanah. And so I really look forward to that. So until then, chazak, chazak, v'ni chazek. May you be strengthened by all the people that are here with us tonight. And we'll see you again in September.
Thank you, Rabbi Schweber. And now, Cantor, I want to ask you to turn your attention to your early days here at Temple Israel. Of course, you grew up in Israel in an Orthodox environment. And when you started out as a cantor, you served in London for about 5 years or so at a preeminent Orthodox synagogue. When you came here in 1990, you arrived also at a preeminent synagogue, ours, but this one was a decidedly conservative synagogue, and you spent your first 11 years here working under the leadership of Rabbi Waxman, certainly at that time or even the preeminent voice of conservative Judaism in the country. So as you think back about your years here and your early days working with Rabbi Waxman, can you tell us a bit about how you see your own development into and as a cantor in the conservative movement?
So, good question. So Rabbi Waxman, first of all, he was very, very nice to me in the beginning. Well, it was always nice to me, but from the beginning, he was very nice to me. But I was a little overwhelmed by his grandeur, with such a huge personality and a big pillar of conservative movement. So I was, in the beginning, I was overwhelmed. Then the more I knew him, the more I realized how warm he was, and of course, how wise and insightful he was. So, and I was moved by his willingness to listen to a young pisher like me, somebody pretty much in the beginning of his career. And when I came with ideas and suggestions, etc. So we had a great relationship, a lot of great talks, particularly, many times when we drove together or took a taxi to a car service, to weddings, there was really great conversation. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot without officially being a student or anything. And I learned, first of all, I learned to be a conservative Jew in a way. And I also learned how important education is in Judaism and in the survival of Judaism. So that's one of the big lessons that I learned from him. I also enjoyed very much his sense of humor, which was particularly funny because the person he was so formal and supposedly seemingly very serious, and suddenly he tells you some funny joke. So I really like that. And I think I learned from him how to listen to people with warmth and with love, because he was so attentive to people when they talk to him. And that's another thing that I learned from him. And under his encouragement, I started to get more and more involved in education, which was not a requirement for me at the very beginning. Because really what happened is that, before me, it was like a transitional time where cantors just davened and maybe did life cycle events. No teaching, no nothing. So at a certain point, I actually initiated my own will to teach Bnei Mitzvah. And from early on, even started to teach before Bnei Mitzvah, even adults. And it developed to a lot of teaching and education. Right.
I think you...
Yes. So now, one of the things that I try to do at Temple Israel since the very beginning, or since after I started to get a sense of what it was, is to get the service to be a little less formal. So one of the things that happened was, if those who remember Rabbi Waxman, he used to kind of recite the words of Oseh Shalom B'Momav, Yehiyu Leratzon, may the word of my mouth and the meditation of my heart, etc. And I felt it could be a little less formal. And at a certain point, very early in my composing career, if one can call it career, I thought, well, maybe I can write something for Yehiyu Leratzon and Oseh Shalom. So we finished the Amidah with this soft singing. And that's what we're going to hear now. Yehiyu Leratzon, that I composed at the time early on in my Temple Israel life, with some pictures that you'll see from Temple Israel, from my family, and with the help of my grandnephew, Yair Elias, and his mother, Ronit.
Shalom, Aleinu ve'ale kol יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן ואמרו אמן.
We're now going to turn to Rabbi Chari, who I think is the one clergy member at Temple Israel who actually predates Cantor Frieder in our congregation. Rabbi Chari, you need to unmute. There you go.
Thank you very much, Eve. It's a pleasure and a privilege to participate in this wonderful occasion of paying tribute to Chazan Frieder for almost 3 decades of service to Temple Israel. And yes, it's been a long time for me too. And in the couple of minutes that I am allotted here, I'm just pulling out some brief reflections, kinds of snapshots of things that went on between me and Chazan Frieder. And I'll start by pointing out that as a member of the clergy, my relation to him was as Chazan Frieder. And in that connection, I felt certain affinities immediately with him. For one thing, I was very impressed that he had spent time in London, because at the beginning of my career, I also spent time in London as a second assistant rabbi in a major London synagogue, not Orthodox, and definitely long before Cantor Frieder was there. But the London connection played an important part of our relationship. And secondly, here was a Hebrew speaker, and I love speaking Hebrew. We've raised our children speaking Hebrew. And here was the Chazan whom I could speak to in Hebrew. And I was very pleased to discover that the trup that I use, for Torah and for Haftarah was very similar to Chazan Frieder's trup, so that we could very easily switch between us or learn from each other or what have you. For a number of years, I was in charge of the daily minyan. And during those years, Chazan Frieder was frequently there, and we worked together to a certain extent. And over the course of time, I learned and used some of his melodies, in particular the Mizmor LeDavid, Psalm 23, which I had first heard in London. I polished up listening to Chazan Frieder, and I have since used it many, many times myself. We shared the pulpit. Speaking of formalities, there were many times when we shared the pulpit, and it was always a pleasure to work with Chazan Frieder. But there was another relationship, and that was on a personal level. And on a personal level, if he will forgive me, if you will all forgive me, my relationship to him was Rafi. And I would call him Rafi, and he would speak to me as Marim. And we had connections with the youth house, just thinking of things that we did together. And I remember very early in his career, I don't know how it came about, but apparently the word got out that he was a bachelor who was a very good cook. And Sisterhood had arranged to have a program, I believe it was a pre-Pesach program. And I was sitting outside the youth house, and here is Rafi coming with his pots and pans to teach the Sisterhood women how to prepare for Pesach. And it was a lot of fun, I'm sure. And everybody enjoyed it very much. And we had other experiences together at the youth house. If some of you may remember the mitzvah group, we conducted Model Sedarim for the mitzvah group. Very abbreviated, but the time for us to do a little clowning around together, whatever. And on that note, some years ago, when the men's club started running a second night Seder, it was Rafi and I who conducted the Seder. And we did some playing around there, so with some melodies, with some other things. They were enjoyable evenings. And we got to work together. It was really lovely. And then over the course of years, I had been leading the Chavorah service, And you may be aware that it is customary when we bench Rosh Chodesh, when we announce the new moon, that the new month will be beginning. The passage at the end of that, Yechad Shehu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is customarily sung to a melody connected with the festival or the holiday, the observance in the upcoming month. And when that happened, and when we had a Chavurah service the same day, it was always a lot of fun at the Kiddush when I would say to Rafi, so how did you sing Yechad Shehu? And he'd tell me, and he'd say, how do you sing it? And I'd tell him. And sometimes we had the same one, we had to laugh over it. Sometimes we had different ones, had to laugh over that too. All in all, it was a lot of fun. But the main thing that I consider, I hope he did too, I consider a lot of fun. You will recall Rafi's shtick at the end of the Simchat Torah service, the Musaf service, where he goes through melodies of all the festivals of the year and the Chazarat Hashatz and the Amidah. I don't know how many of you recall that before that, it was an entirely different situation. Because service would be running late, Rabbi Waxman would speed things up and we would zip through the Musaf as if it was nothing there. And I believe that Rafi and I were instrumental in convincing him to let Rafi give it a chance. And, you know, as they say, the rest is history. On a more sober note, we shared something on Tisha B'Av also, because Rafi prepared a booklet of selections from the keynote, the special prayers and dirges that are recited on Tisha B'Av. And he drew those from a book by an English Chazan by the name of Rosenfeld. And it just so happens that I had the same book. I had used it when I was in London. I brought it home with me. I used it frequently. And so Rafi would show me these pages. I'd find it in my book. We'd do it together. We sat on the floor together in the chapel, and we would proceed through the service and through the keynote. And so at this point, I say that it has been wonderful to have such a colleague, to have such a friend, someone who was Chazan, someone who was Rafi, someone who was just somebody very special. I'm delighted that Chazan Frieder, Rafi, however, will be with us. He's not leaving town. He'll be with us on the Yamim Noraim, and I look forward to listening to him, to joking with him, to sharing experiences for a long time to come. Alei v'hatzlach.
Toda rabba, Rabbi Chari. Thank you very, very much. So, sorry. Where am I? Yes, Rabbi Chari, for all those years, thank you very much for your support and everything you taught me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you and continuing our relationship for many, many more years to come. And now we're going to Magda Cantor, Magda Fishman, my friend, former student, colleague, and everything. Everybody, Temple Israel knows Magda because she has been here many times to sing concert with me. Once she started once, we always wanted her back. And she is kindly going to sing Yismechu, that I composed, of course. And before that, she's going to give her greeting and reflection to me. And that will be followed immediately by the Matalon family. You'll see there that quite a few of those, few members of the family studied with me, and you'll hear demonstration in their way of reflecting and greeting. So we'll start with Yismechu.
Rafi, my friend, my teacher, my mentor, my colleague. Mazel Tov. Congratulations for becoming emeritus. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds and what it brings to your life and to the world. Because I know that everything you touch becomes golden. and your immense talent and voice that goes right there with your immense heart and soul will continue to blossom and give to this world. So, looking forward to many, many years of creativity and grateful for all you taught all of us, your colleagues, your friends, your community, and each person you touched will be changed forever. So, from me to you, friends forever, and Mazel Tov. Let's sing.
שבת וקורא עונג, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקורא עונג, המקדש ישבים כולם יספרו, כולם יספרו, יספרו ויתענגו מטובך, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקורא עונג, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקורא עונג, והשבי רצית בו וקידשתו, חסדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר מעשה בראשית, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקורא עונג, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקורא עונג.
Cantor Frieder, we wanted to say thank you for bringing the song and the melody to Temple Israel, our shul, for so many years. And our family too.
At me, you're at me.
No, I'm better than that. Vadonai, Natan, Chochma, Lishlomo. No, I'm learning right now. I'm better. Ve'arba'a anashim hayu mitzorayim petach hashar. I learned something different. En Keloheinu, en Kadonenu, en Kemokeinu, en Kemoshienu.
Cantor Frieder, thank you so much for teaching our children and my wife. You have always brought so much passion to what you do, and you've pushed for a high standard in everything you've done. Thank you.
Cantor Frieder, I'm so proud to have been one of your students and have completed my Bat Mitzvah as an adult. Thank you for everything that you have done.
Thank you for always being tough on me and pushing me to be my best. It always paid off.
I'm honored to be one of your last students at Temple Israel. Thank you for your weekly time and lessons. Who will teach me for my bar mitzvah? We will miss you, Cantor Frieder.
Thank you, Cantor Frieder.
That was great. Okay, so now we're going to turn to another one of our congregants, Lori Oppenheimer, and Lori will be followed by another musical video presentation, this of Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, a melody that the cantor wrote for a section of the Musaf Amidah. So, Lori.
Those who know me know that Temple Israel holds a very special place in my life. To me, Cantor Frieder has represented the temple's beating heart. His beautiful, moving voice has defined Shabbat and holiday services. I can never repay the Cantor for all he has taught my children and me over the years. I like to say that I couldn't even sing Happy Birthday before he taught me the Torah trope. I never knew where to put my voice. But in 2003, Cantor Frieder taught my adult bat mitzvah class the trope and started working with us individually. That was just the beginning. I continued studying with him on many, many occasions, learning more Torah and Haftorah and how to lead a variety of services. For someone who grew up with almost no religious training, learning these skills has been especially fulfilling. The Cantor always pushed me to learn every nuance of every prayer that he was teaching me. I looked forward to our study sessions, during which we shared a few laughs amidst the multiple repetitions it took to get the subtleties into my head. In 2009, Cantor Frieder began the first cycle of Leilei Shabbatot, Shabbat Kol Isha, followed by Shabbat HaGever and Shabbat Kolenu. As a member of the steering committee for many of these services, I witnessed how much the Cantor taught the congregation, regardless of everyone's Hebrew literacy and level of confidence. We became so knowledgeable that we were able to lead Shabbat services in his absence. It is with the deepest respect, gratitude, and affection for my teacher, Cantor Frieder, that I share in his tribute tonight.
Thank you very much.
מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך מימית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה.
So we are going to hear tonight from three of our presidents, current and past, and we're going to start with our current president. This is a video presentation from Bert Weston.
Okay. It's near impossible in a few short minutes to properly thank someone, both personally and on behalf of an entire congregation, for your years of commitment, for teaching us, for gracing us with song, for innovating, and for infusing us with a spirit that sits deep within all of us. Thank you, Cantor Frieder, for your incredible talent, for clothing our institution in tradition. Thank you for the depth of your teaching, for demonstrating what perfection is, and for pushing so many of your pupils to reach that goal. As a congregation, we've been blessed. As an institution, we've been blessed. We benefit from your legacy, your standing, and your musicality. Thank you for opening your home and your sukkah each year as you man the pans of oil, churning homemade falafel to the many who flowed through the annual celebration. Thank you for creating Shabbat Kol Isha, Shabbat HaGever, and Shabbat Kolenu, which gave voice to our men and women each year. Thank you for teaching our congregants how to lead, how to be important components in our daily minyanim and Shabbat services. Thank you for teaching hundreds of students for B'nai Mitzvah, tefillah enrichment, and Torah and Haftarah trope. Thank you for your innovation, the graduating lightness of our services, for teaching new melodies and incorporating them into your liturgy. Thank you for your wit and the laughter rising from your annual cameo appearances in the Temple Israel Player productions. And thank you for sharing the stage and introducing us to your brilliant colleagues and incredible song. And thank you for leading us in song and prayer and adding meaning to each of our lives. We've been made richer by your presence, by your integral partnership with our congregation. Your legacy remains, as will your connection, as you continue to grace us as Cantor Emeritus. Kol HaKavod, we honor you as you have blessed us.
Thank you very much, Bert, for your kind words. And now we're going to Enke Eloheinu. Enke Eloheinu, not the one from Keeping the Faith, a different one, sorry. I composed this about a year ago, and I composed it for my children choir of the Temple Israel Religious School. And then right after Shabbat Shira we performed, and soon after that came COVID. So I recruited some members of the choir, and I'm grateful to them and their parents for helping me perform this song. So thank you to Elliot Ganjian, Jacob Bloom, Melanie Weinrach, Shira Koda, and Olivia Yakbetz. Thank you very much. Enke Eloheinu.
Enke Eloheinu, Enke Eloheinu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshiachenu, Mich Eloheinu, Mich Adonenu, Mich Malkeinu, Mich Moshiachenu, Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshiachenu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshiachenu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshiachenu, Atahu Sheiktiru, Avotenu Lefanecha, Et Ketoret HaSamim.
Thank you very much. Again, all the kids. And of course, Ron Yedidia, that you're seeing back and forth, singing, arranging, and we'll talk about it a little more later. We are now going to hear my colleague, Cantor David Lipp, who is the president of the Cantors Assembly. He's going to start with a few words, and then he's going to sing Or Chadash, which is one of the new songs that I wrote, a new light, asking God to give us a new light. It was also one of the songs that I wrote in the last year after COVID, and I'm still with you, with everybody, praying for new light and healing and normalcy one of these days, hopefully very, very soon. Or Chadash.
My name is Cantor David Lipp. I am currently the president of the Cantors Assembly, and I am so honored to be given this opportunity to pay tribute to a very diversely talented singer, composer, cantor, chazan. He's a friend, He's a colleague. He's come to my community to sing and perform, and did so beautifully, but so much more importantly, he did so as a mensch, as a truly good, well-meaning, well-feeling, and wonderful human being. And so I sing a piece that he wrote specifically for this event, Or Chadash, and it represents so much of what he's done throughout his career. He's shined a new light over Zion. Zion understood wherever Jews live, so that we can all benefit and all merit quickly to that illumination and bask in it for all times to come. Or Chadash by Chazan Rafi Frieder. Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Al Zion Ta'ir. Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Al Zion Ta'ir. V'nizker Cholanu Mera Leoro. V'nizker Cholanu Mera Leoro. Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Al Zion Ta'ir. Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Or Chadash, Al Zion Ta'ir.
We're now going to hear from another of Rafi's Cantor Frieder's colleagues, Cantor Nancy Abramson. Cantor Abramson was the first female president of the Cantor's Assembly, and she serves now as the director of the H.L. Miller Cantorial School at JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary.
Good evening. I am Cantor Nancy Abramson, the director of the H.L. Miller Cantorial School at the Jewish Theological Seminary. It is my pleasure to join you tonight as you celebrate your outgoing cantor, Raphael Frieder. I have worked with Cantor Frieder for many years at JTS. He has taught a generation of students. His artistry, his patience, his humor, and his knowledge of everything cantorial has been invaluable to us at JTS. As you say goodbye to Cantor Frieder, I hope that you will always hold his beautiful melodies and his engaging manner in your hearts. I look forward, Rafi, to your next steps, to continuing to welcome you to JTS and to your work with our students. And I wish continued success to Temple Israel of Great Neck, to Rabbi Stecker, and to your incoming cantor, Brian Shamash. Again, Mazal Tov, Rafi. You deserve every bit of this celebration and more. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very moving to hear it from this colleague. So Our next number is Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom that you know, we sing it a lot at our services. And I wrote it, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, something like that. And I recorded it particularly for a CD that the Cantor's Assembly produced for charity together with a United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism. And Cantor Fishman, Magda Fishman, was just graduating and kindly agreed to join me in this recording project. So you hear her voice along with my voice. Sim Shalom, bring us peace, Tova uvracha, goodness and blessings.
Sim Shalom, Tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ברחמים עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, על כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו עלינו כולנו כאחד, באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו עד השם אלוקינו, תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה, וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, על כל ישראל עמך. את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה, ישלומך וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה, ישלומך. שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, על כל ישראל עמך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Now we're going to hear from another one of our presidents, Steve Markowitz, who led our shul from 2001 to 2003. Steve, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for this honor. I've had the privilege of knowing Cantor Frieder for the full 30 years he's been with us. And I remember the original search, the interviews, and the auditions, and how impressed we all were with him. But I also remember his very first day at Temple Israel. I was in some kind of meeting with Rabbi Waxman, and in walked Cantor Frieder, and Rabbi Waxman dropped everything he was doing, and he just, as he typically did, he grabbed Cantor Frieder by the arm and said, "We have to talk," and took him off to a bris or a funeral or something, and we didn't see him for a couple of days after that. Remember that? Obviously, Cantor Frieder and Rabbi Waxman formed a very special and warm, close relationship. And in later years, of course, he formed that same kind of relationship with Rabbi Stecker. I have a particular feeling of appreciation for Cantor Frieder. I was present during the years that Rabbi Waxman became sick and eventually passed away. Rabbi Cherry was the man who really kept Temple Israel going, kept us operating, and I'm forever grateful to him for that. But Cantor Frieder was the second in command, and Cantor Frieder played a very instrumental role in providing leadership to keep our synagogue functioning during that very, very difficult period. There are 3 points I'd like to make, reflections about Cantor Frieder over his 30 years. The first, of course, is the fact that he had such an outstanding, trained, and educated professional with an exceptional world-class voice. Everybody came to understand that. Rabbi Waxman, of course, understood that more than anybody else. And it took time for us to really appreciate what we had. And sometimes over the years, unfortunately, we didn't appreciate it enough. But I want you to know, Rafi, now we know what we had under you, and we will miss you very much. He was knowledgeable not just about musical aspects of Judaism, but Cantor Frieder truly was a scholar as well about Jewish law, history, traditions, and certainly was our go-to person when we had a question about Israel. Second point I'd like to make is Cantor Frieder was the consistent, familiar voice, and his tunes every Shabbat, and that gave great comfort to the congregants over the years. As things changed around us, everything else, Cantor Frieder was the constant, and we're a congregation for many ways that's been resistant to change. Cantor Frieder certainly was creative and innovative and made many changes over the years, but he always made a point that we were familiar with what was going on, familiar with the tunes, and felt very comfortable coming into the sanctuary. He used concepts to demonstrate his breadth and courage to innovate, and created fun singing for all, both young people and adults. But services basically stayed the same. And Cantor Frieder appreciated the fact that he was always very sensitive to the needs and desires of the congregation. And over time, those needs and desires did change, and he changed with them when necessary. And my final point is that Cantor Frieder's most outstanding characteristic, and perhaps his most difficult characteristic, is the fact that his devotion to perfectionism, and he expected perfection in himself and among all those people he taught, both young people and adults. In many ways, this is an outstanding asset, this sense of perfectionism and seeking perfectionism, but sometimes it was a problem. I'm sure every president of Temple Israel will share the experience I had with parents and students and sometimes adults who were having problems with Cantor Frieder's high standards and expectations. And it created a dilemma for him. And is how do you expect perfection from people who are less concerned about such expectations? And it took years, true, I think, and you agree, it took years for Cantor Frieder to mellow somewhat and to accept the reality of the fact that our expectations of our students, our Hebrew schools are changing. But he made sure we always got the most he could out of our kids and our B'nai Mitzvah. We're always super well prepared, and he made us proud of them on every Shabbat. And he did the same with all his adult students. He had high standards for them, and he got the most out of them. And he came to understand that he had to work individually with each person to meet their needs. Ralphie found a way to balance his own very high standards with the abilities and commitments of our members and our young people. Finally, it's appropriate that we're reading Exodus now, at the same time that Cantor Frieder is making his own personal Exodus. We are clearly in a changing time. I'm sure that Chazan Shamash will be highly successful here, and I wish him the best of luck in his career at Temple Israel. However, we will miss Cantor Frieder. I'm glad he will continue to be associated with Temple Israel of Great Neck. I wish you, Cantor, happiness and every success in your new home and all of your future endeavors. Thank you for all that you've done for my family and for me and for all my fellow congregants, and I look forward to continuing our friendship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Steve. That was very moving. So the next part of the program, we're going to hear two songs, Shimakuleno, Hear Our Voices, that I took from the Shacharit, or actually the weekday Amidah, for not only Shacharit. Hear Our Voice that I was inspired to write when we started our COVID crisis, and I asked, Shimakuleno, hear our voices and our prayers. And I will sing it with my partner, Deborah Carmichael, who has been with me for well over a decade and touched my life in many, many ways. And I'm too emotional to say more about it, but I'm very, very happy that we've been able to record this song together, Shimakuleno. Deborah is also my singing teacher, changed the way I'm singing, got it better and better. I'm still taking lessons from her. And she also changed everything I write because she's my editor and proofreader whenever I write something that I need professionally, etc. So this is my public opportunity to thank you, Deborah, very, very, very much. And I can say it to the screen, and I can also turn to the right and say to Deborah, who is sitting right there. After Shimakuleno, you're going to hear another wonderful colleague of mine, Cantor Elizabeth Shamash, Lizzie Shamash, is going to sing Mishe Berach, that Mishe Berach that we know and sing every Shabbat, have sung every Shabbat at Temple Israel for a long time. I don't even know when I wrote it. That at least 10 years, but probably more. And we're going to hear her sing Mishe Berach. But before this cycle of two songs, you'll hear Cantor Shamash's greeting, and just focus your kavanah, maybe, for joining these two songs, for asking God to help us to get out of this crisis and asking God to heal everybody who needs healing. So Cantor Shamash first with her greeting, and then we'll sing Shimakuleno, and she will sing Misha Berach.
Chazan Frieder, I am so honored to join the Temple Israel community in celebrating 29 and a half beautiful years of your love, your healing, your friendship, your musical excellence, and brilliant davening, most of all, your big heart. We celebrate you, and I'm honored to sing your Misha Berach L'Cholim, such a beautiful tune, and wish for you great health always.
Shema kolenu, Hashem Elokeinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim u'v'ratzon et tefilatenu. Shema kolenu, Hashem Elokeinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim u'v'ratzon et tefilatenu. Hashem Elokeinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim u'v'ratzon et tefilatenu.
Misha Berach Avotenu
באתי מלזעוק ורפואה קרובה לבוא. השתה בגלה ובזמן קריב מי שבנה אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב שרה רבקה רחל ולאה
We now turn to the last of the three presidents of our shul that we'll hear from tonight, Richie Kestenbaum, who served as president from 2006 till 2011. Richie.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to have the opportunity to join in this tribute to Cantor Frieder. I'm joining in this celebration both as the past president of Temple Israel and a parent of three boys who were prepared by the Cantor for their B'nai Mitzvah. Cantor Frieder has served our synagogue for 3 decades, during which he treated us to his beautiful voice and meaningful davening. For Cantor Frieder, his cantorial duties in representing our congregation before God was a calling, not a job. He invited us to be part of the beauty of prayer, and the synagogue was always enveloped with the warmth of his music, which was fostered by his talent, passion, and commitment to the traditions of conservative Judaism. He strove to make the rituals more special by composing and rearranging the music and teaching the tunes to us to make the services more inclusive. He wanted each of us as individuals and as a congregation to be the best we could be and cared about the legacy of Temple Israel. We also benefited from his association with his students and colleagues, as we enjoyed the many concerts he blessed us with. Each time his colleagues demonstrated the respect and admiration that they each had for him. Personally, I have so many memories of family and temple celebrations with Cantor Frieder. One of the most joyous experiences was seeing my young son, Matt, who was studying classical voice at the time, performing a duet with our cantor at the dinner dance commemorating the end of my presidency. It wasn't just the beauty of the music, but that the cantor had taken the time to meet with my son, teach him, and rehearse with him in secret to perform at the event. Cantor Frieder is a world-class chazan who in large part, along with our rabbis, is responsible for our success as a congregation over nearly 3 decades. Although he is moving on to other professional pursuits, he is leaving us the better for his years with us and for his sharing of his talents, warmth, and excellent reputation in the larger Jewish world. On a personal note, Cantor Frieder, Elise, my boys, and I wish you continued success and good health in the years to come. Thank you for everything you've done for our family and for our synagogue. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much, Richie. And now another family who expressed their own greeting, the Case family, whose daughter Liana just celebrated her bat mitzvah a couple of months ago, or less than that. Okay. And the other daughter, Lily, was a member of my choir, of my Temple Israel Children Choir. So please listen to the Case family.
Thank you, Cantor Frieder, for all you've done for us.
We just want to thank you for training Liana so well for her bat mitzvah and training Mitch and I as well for Liana's bat mitzvah. We couldn't have done it without you. You were patient. You tolerated us exceedingly well. And we appreciated your good humor throughout. And Lily enjoyed doing the choir with you as well. And we will miss you.
And you've inspired us to continue reading from the Torah.
Thank you very much to the Case family. It was really fun to work with Liana, and I had good time with Lily at the times when she was at the choir. I think that, well, at least, I don't know what is considered old members of Temple Israel nowadays, but those who were members, let's say, at least 14, 15 years ago, remember a Cantor Randy Herman, who replaced me when I went on sabbatical to Israel in 2007. He did very well at Temple Israel at the time, and while he was still a student at JTS. Then he moved on and he was a Chazan in Mount Kisco, and just a few months ago he started a new tenure at Chizuk Emunah, this prestigious synagogue in Baltimore, Chizuk Emunah. Randy is going to sing for us Kadeshenu, the first of two Kadeshenu. This one is the exciting one, the up-tempo one. Enjoy, Cantor Randy Herman. Thank you.
קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שבענו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, שבענו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, וטהר ליבנו וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך, וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך. הנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך, וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך. קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שבענו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, שבענו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, וטהר ליבנו וטהר ליבנו לעבדך. Love you, Rafi.
Okay, we're now going to hear from the last of our congregant presentations. First from the Bernstein family, and then from Rebecca Sassouni.
Hi, Cantor Frieder from the Bernsteins. We just wanted to make this little video to thank you. You did such an amazing job working with our boys on their bar mitzvahs and in the choir, and we just are so grateful for the time that you spent and the effort that you spent to bring out their best. So we thank you. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and we really hope we get to see you more in the future.
Thank you, Cantor Frieder, for all you did for the synagogue and for my family. I know that you worked so hard to push my brothers, and I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Cantor Frieder, for all that you've done for me. I definitely would not have done as good as I did at Kabbalat Shabbat or my bar mitzvah without all of your help and guidance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cantor Frieder, for teaching me in my bar mitzvah and in the choir. I know at times it was hard and we had rough patches, but we pulled through, and I think that I did well mainly because of your teaching. And thank you, and I hope we can see each other soon.
Cantor Frieder, I just want to say that you lent a lot of character and wonderful times with my kids when I would come or when you would come and watch them work with you. Your mood was upbeat. You would push them just hard enough that they had to, they felt it, but never breaking them. And when you congratulated them or said they did a great job, they would come home beaming.
It meant a lot.
It really meant a lot. We all just like you as a person, and we really appreciate everything you've done to help us, in our Jewishness, in our bar mitzvah, the walk we do one more time, we're going to be doing. And we look forward to seeing you coming back to the synagogue and sharing your voice on special occasions.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet. Is it me?
No, I think it's Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Okay. I'm really honored and I'm touched to be asked by my teacher, Chazan Frieder, to offer reflections on this occasion. A lot has already been said and written, and I really don't want to be redundant, but honestly, Cantor Frieder deserves each and every accolade that he receives this evening. Raphael Frieder has taught me, my husband, each of our 4 children. I sat in on every lesson. My sisters, my mother, my sisters-in-law, my nieces, and my nephew. He has been a part of our spiritual life and our milestones. Cantor Frieder's voice will surely be an indelible part of the soundtrack of each of our lives. He prepared me as a Baal Kriya and a Baal Tefillah, giving me encouragement to lead intimate minyanim as well as before hundreds of people. What I learned from him is more than tefillah and cantillation. He also modeled preparation and kavanah, intention, 2 values that I really hold in very high esteem. Kavanah and preparation are what make Cantor Frieder both an exacting teacher and very generous with his time and his talent. How can one quantify how many congregants have had the opportunity to learn with this world-renowned master voice teacher one-on-one, and in small groups, and in his office, the chapel, the blue room, the multi-purpose room, the sanctuary, and in his own living room. Hundreds and hundreds of us, to be sure, over thousands and thousands of his hours. As an officer of the synagogue and a member of countless committees at the time, and an admitted shul geek who attends services religiously, I observed and admired Cantor Frieder's attention to tefillah, to honoring God and tradition, and his artistry. And I know that there's many, many other people who have expressed this as well. But in particular, I would like to focus on my experiences in the following ways. I co-chaired 2 journal dinner dances. Actually, one was the Kestenbaum dinner dance that was just referenced, and the other was the one honoring Cantor Frieder on the occasion of his 25th anniversary at the synagogue. There were many, many meetings, many personalities and details, as with any large-scale committee and fundraiser. And ultimately, his was a very artistic and joyous and inclusive and financially successful event. But what I want to focus on and what I recall that I thought most befitting is that through all those details, Rafi insisted throughout that precious synagogue resources should not be wasted on centerpieces and decor, but rather the contributions should be made instead to the needy. In the midst of everything else that was going on, and he was preparing the program with his colleagues for the evening and focusing on that while we were handling all the details as lay people, I was very proud of him that he had that humility and that insight. And we did actually make significant donations, just as he'd asked, to the hungry. In the same vein, he asked me to co-chair a fundraiser he did for Meir Panim with his colleagues for Israel's Food Insecure. And of course, over these years, he has shared his voice with other organizations, including the Hatzilu Rescue Organization, to benefit local food insecure people. As president of SHAI, Sephardic Heritage Alliance, I am very grateful that Rafi spent hours in an Israeli music archive locating the provenance and the authenticity of Mizrahi piyutim and trope. As well, his years of sharing Salichot services with Farid Dardashti, Maureen Nehadar, Yahala Lachmish, and also the high holidays with Chazan Mordechai Sobel, Zichron Lavracha, and others, finally began to meaningfully integrate and validate the Sal Mizrahi family's ancestors to Temple Israel's Bima too, which is noteworthy. I know in my heart that Rafi understood implicitly why Mordechai Sobel affectionately, as a term of endearment, called me Schwarza, and why we understood and aspired toward a more inclusive and multi-ethnic paradigm at the synagogue. As a woman, I am grateful that 12 years ago, when Rafi was approached by Susan Lopakin and myself at a Kiddush to ask for a women-led service that ultimately became Kol Isha, Rafi immediately said yes. And of course, as referenced, that turned into Shabbat Kol Isha, Shabbat Gever, Shabbat Kolenu, and he somehow made time for those every year along with all his other teaching duties and all his tefillah duties and pastoral duties. In that effort, he enabled me and so many other volunteers who he personally cultivated to find our voices. Those services, which deliberately amplified the roles and voices of women, began to redress through tefillah and learning the historically patriarchal and gendered aspects of tefillah and leadership, including in egalitarian settings. Speaking for myself alone, Rafi, I am personally grateful to you. You encouraged me to learn and to lead Torah, Haftorah, and Tefillah, and without a seminary and at a relatively young age, I am a competent Ba'al Tefillah and Ba'al Kriya because of my desire, but combined with your encouragement, and precisely because of your exacting standards. The many hours my family and I spent with you learning, to me mean that when we lead, it is with the satisfaction and the knowledge that we were trained by a master who found our efforts worthy as a Kiddush Hashem. You encouraged me to allow myself to broaden my range and to reach for the high notes. You were right about that too, of course. My reward comes whenever I sing secular or Jewish music. The tears in your eyes when you heard me lead with my daughters one Kabbalat Shabbat last year, and when you appeared in my surprise birthday video. I could go on and on, but really, truly, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Rafi, for your care. And I toast you now with scotch, wishing you good health and much joy always. May God bless you as you yourself have blessed God and us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And hopefully we'll be able to very, very soon really drink together and shake the glasses together. And I also want to say the Bernstein family, thank you so much for your words and for having these two brilliant, cute, and fun children to work with, David and Noah. Sam, maybe we should find time to work together somehow when your time get there. We are now going to continue with a song called Mi Ban Siach. Took me a while to understand what it means in Hebrew, but it's very briefly, it's a blessing song for bride and groom. I wrote it as a tribute to two couples who got married in the middle of COVID last spring, summer, Daniel Frankel and Jacob Englander. Both were my bar mitzvah students, and both parents, the Englanders, Alice and Jeff, and the Frankels, Van and Lori, Zichronah Livracha, who passed away only a few months ago, were very close friends to me, very encouraging supporters. And I decided the wedding were very close to each other. And I thought, okay, I want to do something special for them. And I wrote this song, Mi Ban Siach, blessing them and their brides. Mi Ban Siach. In addition to that, I would like to also introduce one of my most amazing students, yes, Simon Kashfi, and his mother, Minu, two generations of students that I was privileged to teach, and they will share their reflection after the song Mi Ban Siach.
בנשיח שושן חוכים אהבת קלה בנשיח שושן חוכים אהבת קלה משוש דודים הוא יברך את החתן ואת הכלה הוא יברך את החתן ואת הכלה הוא יברך את החתן ואת הכלה
For the past 20-some years, I have had the privilege of being in the same congregation as you were. You have made the prayers so beautiful and meaningful that I really enjoyed them so much that I started to learn them, and thanks to you and your guidance and your teaching, I think I learned a bit. We're gonna miss you very much, and we hope that you're successful in whatever you were doing, and I hope that we can hear you in many more good occasions. Thanks from the bottom of my heart.
Hi, Chazan Frieder. I don't know if you remember this, but the earliest memory that I have of you was from when I was around 5 or 6 years old. It was a Shabbat morning, and it was time for Adon Olam, and so all the kids went up to the bima, and I remember at the end of Adon Olam, you looked at me and said, good voice. And I think it was from then that my admiration towards you and the prayers really began to grow. You have taught me how to pursue perfection and shown me the hard work that it takes to get there. I will never forget that the night before, the first time I ever saying Shacharit on Rosh Hashanah, you sent me the nicest text reminding me that I had done all this hard work and that everything was going to be okay and that I shouldn't panic because I was really, really panicking. I want to thank you from really the bottom of my heart for teaching me and putting up with me and encouraging me to do the best that I can. And I wish you all the best on your new journey.
So the next song is, and before that I have to thank Simon and Minu. Thank you so much. Was moving for me to hear. And Simon, to be honest, I don't remember that 5-year-old incident, but I remember a lot of what happened later on. And you have been maybe one of my best students ever in my life, if not the best of them. So thank you very much for your part in it. Kadeshenu. So whenever I write a song, many times when I write a kind of a fast up-tempo song, sometimes I kind of think, okay, what would happen if I now try to write something slow and decide between them? And that would happen to this Kadeshenu. I like this tune very much, and I can't say enough words to appreciate the amazingly beautiful arrangement that Ron Yedidia made to this song. We'll get to him in a moment. But I also appreciate very much Cantor Magda Fishman, who joined me again and sang with this Kadeshenu version of this version of Kadeshenu from the Shabbat Amidah. The funny thing about this piece is that I wrote it for a congregational singing, and I introduced it one day without the opportunity to teach it, just sang it for the first time. And I finally, only when I sang it, did I realize, oh my God, this has too far a range, too large a range for a congregation to be able to sing it. It went very low, and then it went very, very high. And so the congregation listened, and I hope they enjoyed it. But I realized that as a congregational singing tune, I could never use it any time. So I used it for concert from time to time, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I like it. Kadeshenu.
קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך שבענו מטובך בשמחנו בישועתך
קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך ושמחנו בישועתך וטהר ליבנו לעונך באמת וטהר ליבנו לעונך באמת וטהר ליבנו לעונך באמת וטהר ליבנו
הנחילנו עד השם אלוקינו
באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך
וינוחו בישראל מקדשי שמך.
Yes, I particularly love the ending, how the string go up. But the whole arrangement of Ron is quite amazing, and we haven't found you, Ron, here. So I'm not quite sure. You are here. You are.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can even see you.
Yes, Rafi.
So everybody, please, virtual applause to Ron Yedidia for playing and arranging and doing amazing job, and from me for who knows how many, 25 years maybe at least of friendship and collaboration.
Yes.
And so I'm really, really moved to see you and share this event with you. And
Thank you.
If you want to say something.
Yeah, of course. I would love to say something. First of all, the standing ovation is for you and not for me, Rafi, for so many things that we've seen only part of, which belong to you, to your background, and to your many years of doing and contributing. I just would like, we have known each other for about 25 years now. I just hope that all the people that are watching this and know you realize about what a highly statured, versatile, and influential musician we are talking about when I'm thinking about Rafi Frieder. I've worked in and outside of the Jewish world with some of the best musicians, particularly some of the greatest Jewish cantors of contemporary Judaism. And, I can easily say that with all my respects to everyone, such great musicians, I've never encountered a better cantor musician than Cantor Frieder. And just to touch on his incredible versatility, we're talking about a musical persona that has covered cantorial Jewish music, opera, lieder, contemporary music. He is a man who had the privilege of premiering a work by the great Leonard Bernstein, Arias and Barcaroles, that was composed in 1988 and put tears in the eyes of the great Leonard Bernstein. And I heard all about it. He's performed numerous times with the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. He's contributed such a huge, hefty contribution to the Milken Foundation that has produced and documented so many important masterworks of Jewish music. He's a phenomenal all-rounded musician and composer, as you've been hearing. He's a hearty teacher and a fantastic preacher of values that have been given to Jewish people, but not only to Jewish people, to people of all places and ethnics. And it's been a special privilege that he chose me to be the arranger and music director for such an important CD, which is his lifelong legacy of composing music in the Jewish vein. And I hope that you get a chance to hear the entire CD once it's out there. But really, just as much, if not more for me personally, Rafi has been a true mensch and a friend who knows how to extend his hand, at a moment of need and assist a friend. And he's done it for me whenever I needed, and I will never forget that. Plus the fact that he is probably one of the greatest hosts I've ever seen and one of the best Jewish cooks, ever encountered. A humorous person, but above all, a true humanitarian. So Rafi, I want to thank you for the great opportunity that you've given me in so many ways. Also to remind that you commissioned me some works, choral works, the Misha Berach and Modim Anachnu Lach, and you premiered them. So you've touched every aspect of music that I can think of, choral, lieder, cantorial and popular music. You gave the premiere of my popular songs concert at the synagogue about 20 years ago. And as much as we've enjoyed the last 25 years, I'm looking forward to the next 25 years of us doing everything together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. And thank you for being here. And indeed, let's thrive for the next 25 at least. Let's start with 25, then we'll talk further.
Yeah, I'll hope for it.
Thank you very much. Ron Yedidia, thank you.
So this actually makes a nice segue to Cantor, my last really question for you. At the start of the program, I asked you to look back to your earliest years here. And now, as we near the end of the program, I would like to ask you to look ahead and tell us what you would like your legacy to be for us at Temple Israel, and then also what from Temple Israel you think you will take with you as you move into your future.
So the legacy that I hope that I leave for Temple Israel is lively tune, a good combination of the old and the new, so people always feel at home at the synagogue, knowing that they're going to sing the familiar melodies. And so I think that was something that was very important for me, to find the way to sing lively melodies, old and new, and balance between them. I'm also proud of the Bar Mitzvah program that I put together. And sorry, I have to focus. So the Bar Mitzvah program that I put together, having the children learn the skills of how to read Torah and Haftarah, And, some of them pursued it and learned and did more. And not everyone, but everyone has the skills and some knowledge of how to do it rather than just use a recording or something like that. I'm very, very grateful to Susan Lopatkin, Rebecca Sassuni, as she mentioned it, for coming to me and talking about the possibility of doing a Shabbat, congregational Shabbat for women where they lead tefillah. And that indeed led to the following Shabbat HaGever, because I felt, well, if women are doing it alone, I need to encourage men to do it too. And then, hey, we are conservative synagogue. We have to do everybody together. So that led to the cycle of the 3 Shabbatot, which I felt that every Shabbat, every one of them had a meaning and a purpose that worked. So that and so many people learn how to lead tefillah and do something. So I'm very, very proud, and I hope that something like that is going to continue. I'm also grateful to Susan for coming to me and asking about, how about teaching something more of tefillah to the children before bar mitzvah so they can do something at the bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. And that led to the creation of the Tefillah Enrichment Program, where I decided to choose Kabbalat Shabbat as what I was going to teach. And again, that led for many, many students to learn Kabbalat Shabbat, to lead it, and quite a few of them continue to do that, whether it was Temple Israel or later on in their life, in college, or wherever they got to. So I hope that I achieved something there. What I learned from Temple Israel is how to be a conservative Jew and what such a thing is. I remember that a few years before I came to Temple Israel, before I moved to America, I was traveling in the US, and I go to places where there was a conservative synagogue, and I didn't go to shul because I felt, oh, this is not appropriate. Ha, ha, ha. Well, did I learn so much how important it is to be a conservative Jew, how balanced it is. And I'm very, very proud and happy that I learned that. I learned how important is, and I think I mentioned it, I'm sorry if I repeat, how important education is for Jewish survival and continuing. And one thing not so positive that I learned that I really, really hate politics. But that's life. So I think that's what I can tell you.
And what does the future hold for you now? What do you see for yourself in 2021 and beyond?
Well, what I have tons of plans, and I keep saying if only like 25% of them are going to materialize, I'll be very, very, very happy. I will continue to teach at JTS and other places if they're interested. I might take some kind of a part-time position as a chazan, but I want to continue to write music. I've been writing, in addition to songs, synagogue tunes, I also been writing the nusach, the mode of prayer for Friday night and Shabbat, and I want to continue this project and hopefully even publish it. And I would also like to extend and continue to develop my amazing, rich acting career, from Keeping the Faith to Hunters, and now the world is waiting for me. So
do you want to mention anything about what Ron referenced, the CD that you're making?
Yes. Well, thank you. the CD that I'm making, I will continue to work on it. It's almost going to be done. And by the way, this is a CD that I made for the members of Temple Israel. And I don't know what format it's going to take, because CD nowadays is not exactly what's happening. But we now call it album, and we'll see how it's going to be produced. But I've been promised that there will be a real in-person event to celebrate my time at Temple Israel, so I can say goodbye with hugging people, shaking hands, and indeed, as Rebecca suggested, doing l'chaim together. So I hope that will happen very, very soon. And we'll have that event, and by that time, the album, CD, whatever it's going to be, will be ready. We are towards the last stages of it, but COVID kind of froze us. Now we're gradually getting back to working on it and to do the final stages of putting it together. So maybe, the tunes that everybody knows now, Sim Shalom, Misheberach, Kadeshenu, and many others will continue to be heard, and by each member of Temple Israel getting them, they will also be preserved.
And then you wanted to say something, I think, about Yigdal.
Yes, Yigdal. You're right. So Yigdal is the last piece on this program. And I actually want to say something before that, because I want to thank everybody who helped to put this program together. So I would like to thank, first of all, Rabbi Stecker for his leadership and friendship throughout the year, and Rabbi Schweber for his help and support, and golden heart, really. I would like to thank Bert Weston and Brent Greenspan, who kind of pick up the glove and prepared tirelessly, helped prepare this concert, this event. Same is Jamie Cohn, who did also spend days and nights to prepare it, together with the office staff, particularly Angela Jones, to whom I'm also most grateful. I would like to express my greatest gratitude to you, Eve, for hosting the program, for helping us putting together these little discussions, and I probably forgot some people, and I ask forgiveness, but I just want to be grateful to everybody at Temple Israel for many, many years of knowing all these beautiful people and davening with them, singing with them, participating in Laugh Cycle with them. And I hope to keep in touch. I hope to be able to see you for the high holidays, as I was asked to continue to daven for the high holidays. So I hope to see you there for many years to come. And I wish you all good health, and let's hope the get over this crisis very, very, very soon. And now, Yigdal. Yigdal, I composed it especially, just a second, sorry. You don't have just stay on, it's okay. Sorry. I wrote Yigdal for my children choir. Not children, my teen Slichot group that we had. I wrote it so we can sing something, a new Yigdal for Slichot. There is a beautiful Yigdal that is traditional for the high holidays, but it's very, very, very slow. And I felt that I want to give the kids something a little more exciting. So I gave them something exciting, and then we started to record it with Ron, putting the arrangement. And before we know it, we had a symphony. So listen to this beautiful arrangement of Ron, of Igdal, with particularly great improvisation of Nir Naaman, the saxophone player that we already heard in a couple of pieces. So Igdal finished our concert, and thank you, everybody. And I'm also looking forward to hear Rabbi Stecker right after Igdal.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא ואין אל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו. אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו. הינו אדון עולם לכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו, אל אנשי סגולתו ותקחתו. לא קם בישראל כמו שעוז, נביא ומביט את אמונתו, תורתם את נתן להמוהל, על יד מביא יונה מוותו. לא יחל יפעל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו, צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוד דבר בקמתו. גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רק רשעתו, ישלח לקץ הימים משיחנו, לבדוק מחכה קץ ישועתו. גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רק רשעתו, ישלח לקץ הימים משיחנו, לפדות מחכה קץ ישועתו. מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיית שם תהילתו. 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 ברוך הדיית שם תהילתו. ברוך ברוך עד שם תהילתו.
So before we conclude with Rabbi Stecker, I just want to add one more thanks to Rachel Marks, who has worked behind the scenes and has made all the Zoom transitions, well, most of the Zoom transitions smooth and really contributed to the success of this evening. And now actually to conclude the evening, we hear from our senior rabbi, Howard Stecker.
Thank you so much, Eve. Huge Yishar Koach Chazak Ubaruch to Chazan Rafi Frieder for an absolutely beautiful tribute, very much reflective of the many ways in which you have gifted our synagogue for nearly 3 decades. I want to acknowledge your extraordinary legacy, which you bequeath to Chazan Shamash and to the entire Temple Israel community. I want to thank you for our shutafut and chavruta, for our partnership and our friendship. I was remembering all of these moments that a rabbi and a Chazan share. I'll just focus on one which came to my mind. It was Shabbat Para, which is one of the Shabbatot before Pesach. And we realized at a certain point in the service that we had assigned the wrong haftarah to the bar mitzvah. And we just had to announce a different haftarah because this is what the bar mitzvah had prepared. So backstage in the little office, we turned to each other and we said, from now on, we're not going to call this Shabbat Para. We're going to call it Shabbat, a word in Hebrew that rhymes with para, which I'm not going to share right now. But it was one of those beautiful moments that a rabbi and a chazan share, and of course, moments in your home and in my home and in the congregational home. Chazan Frieder has extraordinary gifts that he has used toward extraordinary accomplishments. An unusual, beautiful, resonant, versatile voice, deep musical intuition, which is very, very rare, creativity when it comes to liturgical leadership, when it comes to crafting a service, compositions that include original melodies, but also revitalizing and refashioning melodies from other composers, playfulness, which we would see from time to time, for example, the Kein Yehi Ratzon that he would do on Simchat Torah for the children who would come up on the bima, curiosity that always led him to discover new melodies, that led him to try to find creative ways to harmonize East and West as he did during Selichot and other times. Gifts alone do not yield accomplishments. You also need very hard work. Chazan Frieder worked very hard so that his gifts would create quality, engaging religious services for each of us. And I think of the arc from Rosh Hashanah to Simchat Torah, for example, an arc of tefillah, which embraces a multiplicity of moods, including the magisterial, the plaintive, the joyful, the commemorative. I would stand next to him for Yizkor on Shmini Atzeret and be swept away by the reflective tone that he created as we were all there recalling our loved ones. And then hours later, he had the koach to sing song after song after song as we were dancing in celebration of Simchat Torah. And who can ever forget Carmen, which brought the Simchat Torah morning or early afternoon service to a close. And each Shabbat service was a spiritual opportunity under Chazan Frieder's leadership. The Torah tells us, we just read about this, how Moses grew up in the palace, and then Vayetze Elechav, Moses left the palace and went out to his brothers and sisters and to his people. I thought of that this week as we heard the words, and also as we heard several of Chazan Frieder's students who were singing and chanting in ways that he had taught them. There's something royal about Chazan Frieder's talent. It is quite unusual. It is elevated above and beyond most of us. He could have said, I'll stay in the palace. I'll pray, you listen. I'll read, you listen. And instead, he left the palace and he went out to us and he taught us and he used the patience that was required to teach adults and children so that they could participate as well. I want to conclude with the words that we're going to be reading in a few days on Rosh Chodesh. We read Psalm 104, which is the psalm that embraces the majesty of creation. And at the very end of that psalm, we read the words, Ashira Ladonai B'chayai. The biblical Hebrew is sufficiently flexible. It has a magnificent plasticity to it so that you can understand the words to mean, I will sing out to God while I am still alive. And you can also understand the words to mean, I will sing out to God with my life. I will put my whole life into my song. Chazan Frieder, you surely sing out to God with your whole life, with your whole heart, and with your whole soul. And everyone who knows you and cares about you and appreciates you prays that you will continue to sing out with your many gifts and with your deep devotion for many, many years to come, hopefully a long life of continuing to sing out to your Creator. So I am holding a very nice Bon Haben, which I'm going to enjoy, well, really, not virtually, but virtually for the rest of you. And I just want to wish you, Elachayim, many years of sharing your gifts with your Creator and with your family and with your friends. L'chaim.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.